Hello.
No, don't do it yet.
We're gonna dance.
Let's have a little bit of
Oh, I didn't know we were doing that.
No, we already did it. I just want to have some. Let's meander into it. Let's as if we're walking in an orchard.
As if we're friends.
We're in an orchard garden, and we're just plucking the ripest and some of the most delicious looking orchids, whatever you call them, apples. Just taking a bite.
So
how all women are queens.
Apples are grown in orchards.
Orchards. Yeah, we're walking through an orchard grabbing apples.
Okay. Orchids, that's a flower.
Orchids are flowers. But I always get this...
Also, the subject of the film adaptation, which we did as episode 27.
That's in the Patrons collection.
That's in the Patreon collection. It's a great time to bring up. We have a Patreon. Please subscribe. We have a few tiers to it.
How many? 7?
7 tiers, like hell.
Just like Dante wanted.
Like Dante wanted.
It's 14, right?
We have a very exciting Patreon plan for just $2 a month. You can feed a hungry child in Africa and get exclusive content.
No, you're supposed to read it. You read it wrong. It's a hungry African child. But then I was supposed to correct you, be like, I'm not African, silly. We'll do it again.
Hello. Welcome to episode 41 of To Be Honest. I'm Addison.
I'm Jackson.
I'm the artist formerly known... I'm just kidding, I'm Josh.
And we saw Booksmart, the directorial debut of Olivia Wilde.
Well, that seems excessive. Shotgun. Just kidding. I don't have one.
Who is that?
She's an actress.
What's she in?
What?
She's been in quite a few things. I think her most famous role is in the show House, which I haven't watched, admittedly, but I know people love it. She plays, her name's Thursday or something like that. She's like a bisexual doctor or something.
I'm gonna look up a picture real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Olivia
Break
Wilde,
that phone out.
We only can talk about women in the context of men, and she's married to...
She's married to Jason Sudeikis.
Who makes a couple appearances.
He does. He makes a couple appearances in the film.
Can't we just graduate, head off to college? That should do it, right?
We will persist.
I can't hear you. I can't soundproof glass.
Anyways, I guess I'll get this out of the way right now. If you care at all, please like and subscribe, upvote, or thumbs up, or whatever that is on YouTube.
Who thumbed us down?
I don't know, some fucking asshole. And if you have any questions, concerns, complaints, please email us at tobehonestcast@gmail.com.
It's right there. Do it.
So yeah, directorial debut, which I think is interesting to note. When I first started reading about this movie, I was kind of wondering, oh man, because it's getting very good reviews. It's at an 85 right now on Metacritic. And I was wondering, is this going to be one of those kind of lightning in the bottle scenarios that we had with Superbad, even though that wasn't that particular director's debut. That's Greg Mottola, who directed Superbad, and he did some things, I think one movie before that. But anyways, I was also thinking of 8th Grade.
Watching it.
Yeah, in terms of a female-led comedy,
coming of age story that's a bit raunchy, shall we say?
There were some F words within a bit.
But yeah, so it's difficult to talk about this movie without kind of referencing these other films. We want it to exist on its own as a work, but it's unfortunate that you kind of have to say this is the female Superbad.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that just from the trailers. I think that's kind of how they advertised it. I mean, the plot lines are so similar, where it's just the last day of high school, and it's we haven't lived our lives to the fullest. We haven't gotten the full high school experience. We got to go out tonight and make it happen.
Yes.
And our crushes are going to be at this party. We have to go.
Mm-hmm.
It's really punch for punch the same plot.
We have to go to a party tonight.
What?
Nobody knows that we are fun. We didn't party because we wanted to focus on school and get into good colleges.
And it worked.
Absolutely. And you have kind of the same, roadblocks in terms of getting there. Not the exact same, but we have, the couple of false starts, right, before actually getting to the party.
3 false starts. Rule of 3.
Yes. Rule of 3, false starts. And also another similarity, of course, is that Beanie Feldstein,
That's correct. I don't know, probably. Sounds
is Jonah Hill's sister.
How old is she?
Context
Does
of
anybody know?
men.
She is his little sister. I don't know exactly how
She's
old she
23
is.
years old.
23.
Because wasn't Jonah like almost 30 in Superbad?
It's possible. No, I don't think so. Because he's around my age. So he was probably closer to around that age range, 25, 26, probably when that movie came out. So yeah, and also the similarities don't end there as far as like you have this, this pair of friends, right, who have been lifelong friends. They have their own language sort of and their own deep world in which they live that's kind of separate from everyone around them in the high school.
One comes and picks the other one up from school.
Yep.
Or to go to school.
Exact same intro basically as Superbad, except for instead of talking about how amazing it would be if the Coen brothers directed porn, they're instead like dancing out in front of
I forgot about that line.
Yeah. Look, I'm sorry that the Coen brothers don't direct porn, but so yeah, I guess we'll open up with general impressions. What did you guys think of this movie?
I thought there were some good parts about it. I thought that they had, I guess I'll call it music editing, where they would cut out the soundtrack of the movie and then just have music playing, and they would just have like some really cool shots happening.
So that was reminiscent to me of 8th grade.
I don't remember that part of 8th grade.
There was a lot of moments in 8th grade, like the pool
Mm-hmm.
party scene, and then the scene preceding that where they're like sitting around in class about to open their time capsules, and she sees whatever his name is, like Brody or whatever, walking to the front of the class, and the diegetic sound cuts out, and it's just this like blaring synthy type music.
That kind of does ring a bell.
Yeah.
In this movie, they started out with they would use it to introduce characters, like especially like the kind of like the goofy comedy relief characters. Like there's just like this wild, crazy girl that seems to show up in every place, and she has this intro with like some like blaring like dance music, I think it was, and she's like hanging out of a car, and and that happens a couple times, and then. There's not really spoilers for those movies, I don't feel like, but basically one of the characters goes through like a really emotional scene, and she jumps into the pool, and while she's underwater, of course you have no sound coming from the party, and it's just like this musical soundtrack over it. I felt that was like a really powerful scene.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that I that was probably my favorite scene of the movie.
I agree.
I thought it was really well done, and it had like some good symbolism behind it. But overall, like I thought visually it was impressive, like the lighting coming through the pool, and her swimming around, kind of seeing all the legs
and all the other bodies floating through the water. That was really cool.
Yeah.
All the bodies, all the dead
The
bodies.
bodies hit the pool.
Joshua?
How you go?
Okay. Overall impression of this movie is I wished that it was funnier. I definitely kind of expected it to be funnier. That's not to say that it is not funny, because there's definitely some funny things that happen in it. I liked the general plotting of the story for the most part, even if it was formulaic. And I thought it featured a pretty good pair of performances from the two leads.
Do you feel like there was some charisma between them?
I actually did. I thought that they had a really good chemistry, where I believed that they were like lifelong friends.
So I agree that the comedy kind of fell flat for me, but I couldn't figure out whether it was because they didn't have the right charisma between the two of them, or I couldn't tell too like what was improvised and what was written, because it all just felt kind of like spitballed.
I kind of feel like they stuck close to the script with this one, as opposed to something like Superbad, where a lot of that was improv.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg wrote the script, and so of course, like, it was bound to be fucking filthy and everything. But they definitely gave Jonah Hill and Michael Cera kind of free reign. I think what they did actually is they shot the scene with the written dialogue, and then they'd roll it again with improv, and then whatever was the best one, that's the one that stayed in the movie. So yeah, I wish it was funnier. I liked the performances and the general plotting. Overall, though, it felt kind of empty. Like I didn't walk away with a whole lot from it. So yeah.
Well, so like the plotting, like their journey to get to the house party that they're trying to get to because they don't have the address to it. basically the hiccups along the way are just them showing up to the wrong party continuously.
Yes.
Which I felt like was kind of lame. Like it just wasn't an interesting way of them trying to like overcome these, problems to get to this party. I just felt like they weren't like very interesting. And then like the random drug trip too.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that.
Okay.
But garçon.
Garçon? Oui, moi, right?
Moi.
Oui. What I thought of the movie, I liked it. There are some like specific things that don't work, but for the most part, it felt they like kind of put their both feet in something, like both feet into the movie. They like didn't go all in on the comedy, but I think they went all in on a narrative, and I appreciated that.
What'd you feel like the narrative was?
Well, not maybe just stylistically they went all in on something, and it didn't feel like they were trying necessarily to be super funny, or at least like they weren't like super committed to the humor, but it was there. I wish it was funnier, but it wasn't. But they were committed to like this weird, like surreal almost style of like the film, and there's definitely moments where it doesn't feel like you're watching a typical sex comedy or teen sex comedy movie, which I like. So I appreciated like some of the efforts in that regards.
Whereas Superbad felt pretty grounded in reality, this one was definitely a little more wacky, like a little bit more in the realm of the absurd.
My.
One way to put that would be that a lot of the side characters felt like caricatures. They didn't feel like actual fleshed out characters, the way that, like McLovin, right, from Superbad. Like on paper, he seems like he should be a caricature, something that has no depth, right? But as the movie progresses, you uncover that depth.
It's in.
What a wonderful line and a wonderful delivery too. The camera looking up at him, and he's like
pushing himself up.
It's in with that redhead. So while I felt like the two leads in this were grounded, believable, all of the secondary and tertiary characters felt minimally sketched.
Yeah, I thought that was weird, especially a movie that's an hour and 40 minutes. You thought you could develop. They did something with the crazy girl who was just always showing up.
She was a little bit of a comedy relief.
She was,
but there was like some sort of arc, but at the same time, it was given to us through someone else telling us, like, she's sad. Like, that's not really how your character should reveal itself.
Right. It should be through her actions that we understand, oh, she's acting out because she's actually, like, really sad and doesn't know her place in the world. Instead, it's through another character where he says, she's really sad.
And for a movie that is, like, very feminist forward, not giving that character agency to like develop her own character kind of takes away and undermines like that whole reveal.
Why is it that a man has to explain?
I know that's a joke that you're making, but I'm being so serious. Especially if we're gonna have this, I think we should look at this movie critically. If we're gonna have a feminist forward movie, and Olivia Wilde, who is clearly pro women, that's a moment that I think that should be observed closer. Mm-hmm. I don't know. But the secondary characters do seem like they have no depth to them, and when they do get an opportunity to have depth, it's like undermined by the fact that you're not seeing it. Another character is telling you, the audience, what to think about them.
Well, so what it made me think about is like all of the '90s rom-coms, like She's All That and everything like that, except for it's been updated, right? In terms of now we have queer characters, and we have
before it was like black and Asian characters,
right?
That was their liberal bullshit that they were pushing onto us.
But this now we have it updated for the 2019 pastiche. And so like, but they're still ultimately caricatures, right? They're they're still flat.
The flamboyant gay character.
Yes, the two gays, the one of which is like, oh, he's the control freak who wears a blazer to high school, and then the other one is the ultra feminine black guy who is really into drama.
Right. I'm actually reminded of another show, or a show on Netflix called Sex Education.
Oh, okay.
Which deals with like a diverse cast of people in high school. And there's queer characters, and there's black characters, and there's all these different... There's this whole cast, and they never felt like caricatures. I mean, you delve them out, or you deal it out in like a whole 10-episode arc, but...
Do you feel like the main character, or one of the main characters in this, who was lesbian, do you feel like she was a caricature?
Oh, no, I loved her
no.
character.
I thought the two leads were pretty well done.
I thought that was well done, too.
And I think that's probably thanks to the actors. I think that they were the ones that were able to kind of provide more depth, because on paper, it's fairly obvious in terms of like, oh, okay, like we're gonna have this situation, but we'll make one of them gay, right? And that's gonna add that extra layer of drama and tension, and it's gonna make it just different enough from the things that have preceded it.
It was an interesting perspective, like where she's like, sure, you have the high school crush, which, that's a really common character arc, but then it's like, I don't know if she likes girls or not. Mm-hmm. Like, she has to figure that out, and then she's surfacing in the pool, and then she comes up, and then she sees her crush with a guy, and it, like, fulfills her fear of, like, her not being into girls.
Right. Well, and also too, like the character Amy, she is out of the closet, but she doesn't have any sexual experience, right? So it's like, oh, is this just a phase? Like, is she just doing it to be different, and because that's the identification du jour, to be gay? And then there's the scene, and I guess
just marching around.
Okay, I think that my daughter is gay, but she is always acting out.
So I guess we'll just say spoilers, even though, as Jackson said, this is kind of a difficult movie to spoil, but what we would be doing is spoiling jokes, I guess. Highlight of the movie for me, Will Forte, hands down.
Really good. Even like his super limited screen time.
I forgot about Will Forte for a second. Yeah, he's good.
He was good. I love when they walk into the kitchen. He's like, "Hun, get down to the safe room because we have two supermodels robbing us." And then when he's going through all his graduation themed snacks, and he's like, "Swedish, me being your dad is the greatest gift that I have ever been given."
I wish we had more Will Forte, like a seasoned comedian around these characters.
Well, and then conversely, I thought Jason Sudeikis was fucking boring in this movie.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what he was going for.
Well, I think it was Olivia was just trying to throw him a bone.
He was just like the bumbling adult.
What does he need a bone for? He's well off.
Well, but he's not like a leading man in movies or anything like that. He's not. I can't even remember the last movie I saw with him in it. Well, just have a role, right? Like, stay present in the public eye.
Add to his reel.
He was the butt of probably my least favorite joke is when they're in the back of his Lyft because he picks him up. They don't know he's a Lyft driver until he picks him up, and then they're like, well, we're going to watch a little bit of porn so we can see, like, how to finger a girl.
Well, that goes back to, like, Amy's whole thing of, like, I think I'm gay, but I've never actually watched porn, and I've never actually done it.
How it's done.
I think she's clear that she knew she was gay.
Well, right.
Does,
like she identifies as gay, but she doesn't have any gay experience, I guess. And that's the one thing, I guess, that people would point to, like, well, how are you sure you're gay then?
But the joke is that they're watching porn in the back seat, and then one of the characters is like, your battery's almost dead. Oh my god, like, we have to plug it in. And so he hands them the charger, which is hooked over his car, and of course when they plug it in, you hear sex sounds coming, which I saw like a mile away.
Yeah, I was like, how are they gonna incorporate the sex sound?
And Jason's like, is this Cardi B? Oh my god.
Oh yeah, that was a really bad joke.
That was by far the lamest joke of this movie.
It's funny your parents think we're boning.
What you two have is special.
We are going to show each other how much we care about each other.
We'll probably just do a Korean face mask.
I don't need to know all the words.
So, yeah, so we have, like, lame side characters, but we have two pretty compelling lead performances. You didn't like the fact that they're, like, having kind of these false starts and going to these different parties. I didn't love it, but I accepted it.
It just felt like it was too goofy for me. Like, I like Superbad where their false starts is them trying to get liquor.
Yes.
Because that's so relatable. Like, when you're in high school and you're going to a party, like, it's like, where are we going to get booze? And so in this one, it's like, oh, we have, like, this super rich friend who can't make friends. So the first party they go to is this cruise ship or this yacht that he has all to himself. No one's there. And then the next one, they go to, like, a murder mystery party. It just feels kind of empty to me.
Prepare to get bashed! Not in like a violent way, completely consensual bash. Prepare to get consensually bashed, I'll say. I'll have him change it.
But that did lead to a scene that I felt deep conflict about, which is they go to the yacht, and then the crazy girl that we've been referencing, who's also rich and friends with this Jared guy, feeds them strawberries, which are apparently laced with some kind of like ayahuasca-esque
But
Asian waska. Fuck you. Oh, stupid joke. Laced strawberries, and they're at this party, and then boom, the drugs hit. And so what happens is there's like a claymation Barbie doll scene where the voices weren't synced to the mouth, which was really distracting, but also I wasn't sure what the fuck the point of it was.
I checked out really fast.
What I did like about it is I thought that it was an interesting creative choice. I thought that there was probably a good idea nestled within that scene, but where they took it was just dumb.
It felt like an attempt at like Amy's character, like discovering her body more.
Yes.
Like in a very truncated amount of time. Because there's that weird thing where they take all their clothes off and...
Oh, there's just this one left. Do you need me to go get you one?
No.
I'll go get you one.
No.
Didn't need me to go get you.
They are making that point about how Barbies are unrealistically proportioned, but then they start looking at themselves, and then Barbara Feldstein, what's her name?
Beanie Feldstein.
Beanie Feldstein. Her character was like, or Molly, that's her name. Molly was like, oh, it's disgusting, and then Amy looks in the mirror, and she's like, wow, I've got great boobs, and like she's like feeling herself. She's like confident in herself.
She's like, I know I shouldn't, but
and she like feels guilty about like objectifying herself. I thought that was interesting, and it was like a very like to me weak attempt at like her character taking a step forward in her discovery of herself, so that she could, when she gets the opportunity to like make something happen at the party, it's informed by her tripped out Barbie doll sequence.
Yeah. Also, I've done a few hallucinogens in my day. And let me just tell you that you don't just decide to stop tripping.
Right.
At a certain point.
Once you get thrown out the party,
Yeah.
once the scene ends, you don't just decide, oh,
like,
I'm not
okay,
having...
that's done. That was fun.
It's not confined to a 15-minute span of time.
Right.
That was my biggest problem with it. I was fine with the claymation stuff, and I was fine with another way. Like, if they didn't get that high, and then they, like, kind of came down, I was more forgiving, but it's very harsh. Like,
if you're tripping so hard you think you're a Barbie, you better clear your schedule for the next couple days.
Yeah, no shit, because the come down from that is going to be fucking brutal.
Kill yourself,
Yeah, seriously. I
did want to come back to the minor characters. I'm still thinking about them.
Okay, go ahead.
I think I am liking or warming up to the idea of them being caricatures. If we are just really, who cares about them? Like, we can just focus on these two main characters. And if it's a movie that is kind of blending that reality and surrealism, like, you don't need a traditional, like, in-depth cast of characters, where it kind of feels like almost so ridiculous that the situations that they're in, that it doesn't feel realistic, and therefore if the characters around them aren't realistic as well, or just kind of like a shell of what they could be.
Well, I feel like they feel like emergency comedy injections.
Yes.
Where it's like this movie like just did not have it going on for like the main storyline, so you have to just be like, yeah, wacky girl's back. She drugged you. She's doing all this crazy stuff, and also the guy who like has his backwards hat on underneath his graduation
Jared,
cap.
yeah.
But he's also just a goofy dude.
But that felt more of just accessory. It didn't feel like the film was like trying to get us to invest in them. Like, when the girl would pop up, she would just pop up for a minute. It wouldn't be like a thing.
They did try, though. They did try in that scene between Molly and Jared, where Jared all of a sudden drops the facade, right, of being like
true.
the, you know, and he's like, I want to build airplanes
like that.
and make musicals and blah, 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 blah. So again, I was reminded of 8th grade. If we want to talk about the side characters, I mean, 8th grade had like great side characters who were really funny, but the humor wasn't a result of like, they're gay,
though, right?
or they're, well, no, like you had I think his name was Adrian, who was the crush of the girl, and the scene during the school shooting thing where he's like, "Do you give blowjobs?" But then, of course, like one of the best characters ever written in any film ever, which is Gabe. They sit down to their meal of chicken nuggets, and the first thing he says is, "So do you believe in God?"
This is a Gabe fan podcast.
Gabe fan club. And so like that was it felt natural, right? And it felt, as I said in that episode, authentic.
But that's also a much more grounded movie.
Yeah.
Much more. If we're talking about 2014 Boyhood versus Birdman, there's magic realism and then there's realism. Those are these parallels. Not as clear, but
which one was this movie?
This would be Birdman.
This would be the Birdman magical realism, but I don't think that that's necessarily what they were going for. Like I feel like they thought like, oh, we've got this fucking nailed. We've checked off all the boxes. We've got the gay character. We've got the Wigger character with his Cuban links chain. We've got the like mess of a rich girl who does way too many drugs because daddy never paid attention to her and blah blah blah. And I at no point did I feel as though they were trying to make a point. Like, it would be one thing if they were commenting on these stereotypes of characters and having the characters reflect that, but all it did was just play into those stereotypes even more, which in my cis white gendered opinion is somewhat damaging to those particular personality traits, right? Like how can you still have a gay person that's defined by the fact that he's very uptight, he's a neat freak, he wears his blazer, and girl, he's sassy as hell. Like those kinds of portrayals I feel like do more damage to the community or whatever than good.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
The mere fact that they're represented does not excuse making them into fucking caricatures.
And I wanted more of like with what was the jock guy that Molly was in love with? Nick. Yeah. I wanted more. Like, I really love that scene.
Oh my fucking god, the Harry Potter bullshit. I did want to walk out at that moment in time. You're a Slytherin with like some Ravenclaw.
No,
that's exactly it. That's exactly what I am.
Yeah, I was really disappointed in that.
I thought you were gonna fucking shoot in your pants with the Harry Potter reference.
No, I don't like Harry Potter references unless you do it in a way that is funny and has a payoff. There's not a lot of like traditional jokes where it's set up and then payoff. Or even like
the only joke I felt like
bait and switch
that had like the classic setup and payoff was at the very, very, very end with Ling Ling the panda. When,
that was the funniest joke.
Yeah, when Lisa Kudrow's Ling Ling.
Oh yeah, he comes in.
Yeah, she just slaps it out of her hand. Yeah.
You're bringing Ling Ling.
Oh, make her feel good.
Make it stop.
Please don't put your face on the face,
Not on the head.
The part where Molly comes in and then that like traditional rom-com thing where like the music stops and everyone disappears and your crush is across the room and you see them and the music swells and all that stuff. Here it's the same thing except there's no music, it's all silence, and you hear the boots tapping across the hardwood floor as he walks towards Molly, and then they do this huge dance scene and this little number and they're like choreographed, as opposed to like usually it's just like the movie doesn't like take enough energy to like they just walk up to the person and then they look at them and be like, "Hi, Molly." Like that's it. That's the whole thrust of that sequence. But instead, for this movie, they decided to do this whole number, and I think that's when I decided that I liked the weird creative choices that they were making because they decided to go a step forward.
Yeah, like I feel like the cinematography and the writing when it comes to those kind of abstract scenes are clever and I like them. the whole Nick thing reminds me of another problem I have with this movie is that it just seems hungry for conflict at a certain point, where it's like, okay, they have crushes like on these certain people, and that doesn't work out really quickly.
Well, how neat was that?
Each other.
In terms of like their two crushes end up together,
Right.
like how much of a fucking bow could you put on
And
that?
that immediately causes conflict between both of the main characters.
They have the falling out.
And then the lesbian character goes into the bathroom, starts crying, and then she, starts hooking up with another girl, and then she.
Which I'd never
keeps on
seen you
her.
more attentive in a film than during that scene.
Great filmmaking.
You sat right up. You sat right up.
So I was actually slightly uncomfortable with Jackson's reaction physically.
What? You guys don't applaud during movies?
Cheer.
Yes! Finally! I ship them.
Captain America!
I
You got
shipped
the
them.
hammer!
I was really satisfied with that because when they were in the classroom in the beginning of the movie, there's like this weird exchange between Amy.
Some energy there.
And I was like, oh, they're gonna fuck. And I thought like,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, really excited. And then it wasn't happening. And I was like, oh man, this is kind of whack. Like no secret crush or anything. And then it happens. It also just felt like, okay, the character now has to walk into a room, and in that room is the person that she's gonna sleep with. It didn't like there wasn't a lot of organic stuff, and it's hard to forgive like that. It's just
What about the?
It's lazy.
What about the breakdown from that scene? Feels so weird because okay, so they're hooking up, and then they foreshadow before she hasn't done this before. She's not really familiar with that angle. She puts it, and then she starts fingering her butthole, and then she's like wrong hole, and then she stands back for a second, all embarrassed, and then she just drinks a random cup.
Which, like, I felt like they were...
She pulls something out of her mouth.
Something out of her mouth.
I think
felt...
it's those tobacco, those dip pods.
Oh,
Well,
so
I-
okay.
That's what it looked like.
I was thinking, too, that maybe it was like a dip cup or something
I
like
thought it was
that.
something like that.
But the movie needed to explain that. The movie needed
Please.
to show what
Please.
was
Sure.
in the cup.
It
To
showed-
justify...
Yeah.
She immediately pukes onto the girl that
Right.
she's hooking up with.
Right.
And it's like, oh, this has gone so wrong all of a sudden.
No. One other creative choice that I actually did really like was when Molly and Amy have the falling out and they're arguing, and then all of a sudden the diegetic sound cuts out, music comes in, and you see them arguing back and forth, but you can't hear what was being said. I liked that. I thought that was
Also
tastefully
the
done.
camera lights in the background off the phone.
Yes.
Of everyone filming.
Of
That was a
everyone
cool
filling him,
touch.
yes, that was a really nice touch. There was
There's
there
no payoff
was
for that though either.
no, there wasn't. Like it could have been that she wakes up the next day and there's like videos of them fighting or
Well, it's
whatever.
like I
and,
said, this movie got so hungry for conflict, it starts to like brush over what's going on.
yeah.
Well, it would have been nice to. Sorry, I just want to.
go ahead.
It would have been nice if she woke up to the videos and really regretted her behavior that night
like,
before,
oh,
and
I'm
that's
in-
what. That's what
I'm in
really.
prison.
Yeah, and that's what really. And then she sees the other video of where she decides to get arrested, and it's like so she's like feeling all guilty, and then she feels like she needs to rush to her best friend's aid because of how she really treated her last night.
Yeah.
That's what you would do in a movie.
Well, then the movie completely throws realism out the fucking window when she goes and gets Amy out of jail, and there's that fucking it's not even a MacGuffin, but like the like loophole in the story where
The MacGuffin of all MacGuffins.
yeah, they had spent like 1 minute in a car with a pizza delivery guy who was like, "You need to be safe. This is a dangerous world." And then it turns out he's a wanted serial killer. So we're going to turn in the serial killer, get you out of jail, toots. Let's go graduate. And they're like, and I liked the scene because it did have the song with Run the Jewels. And I thought it was like interesting visually. And then with the soundtrack laid over it.
I loved them driving away.
Yeah, that was cool. But when they bust through the fence for graduation and like get out and throw on her valedictorian sash and her ropes and everyone's cheering, and I was just like, fuck you. This kind of shit we left behind in 1999 for a very good reason. We stopped making movies like this because they don't work in the real world anymore.
They also paint just like a totally unrealistic standard for like being accepted in school and like being like fitting in any sort of way. Mm-hmm. Like you're having this heroic arc that you don't deserve from a story standpoint, but also that these characters realistically wouldn't like aspire to. Or they wouldn't want to be loved in this sort of way, not just within a day. Like it feels like they've went on this huge journey, and the things that they like come out of doesn't make them like want to be like cheered and applauded for. Like they probably have massive insecurities and like that. Like if someone told them like, hey, tomorrow morning you're gonna be in front of the entire school and everyone's gonna be cheering for you, they're gonna think about it like, wow, that would be really embarrassing. So stuff like that. It doesn't feel as nuanced as it should have been. I also want to talk about, since you said valedictorian, I don't buy the intellectual thing. I was really wanting more from it. And I was really disappointed.
Like, you don't buy that she's like super smart? Or...
No, it's just like the hardworking. Like they kept telling us, so I knew. But it's like the hardworking, like oh, we're nerds. It's like.
Well, I also
it just didn't feel authentic, and I
thought the scene was lame when she's running through the hall, and like this didn't actually happen, but it might as well have, where she like knocks a bong out of someone's hand. She's like, "Where are you going to college?" And they're like,
right.
Georgetown."
Oh, yeah, right. I'm fucking like going to play soccer at fucking Stanford and shit.
I also was like weirded out by that, and that's when I realized that this movie isn't going to care about realistic details.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
like, everyone's going to an Ivy League or just a fucking like Stanford's a really good school to get into, even if it is on a soccer scholarship. Like still. And I thought maybe like they're making a commentary on the fact that everyone's rich in the school.
Yeah, I thought that would have been interesting if they took that angle.
But they did not.
They didn't. They're like, oh, my mom paid for me to get into Yale or something like that.
Maybe they were like thinking it. Like this is like what you do in your like freshman writing class. But
well, especially like with the most recent headlines too.
Yeah, right. And you're like thinking like, oh, everyone's going to get this because like I'm thinking about it. But
they should have reached out at the beginning of this film.
They should have to accommodate the
newsreel
of
like...
Aunt Becky bullshit.
Well, that's the conflict. Is she's like, I work so hard, and like everyone's parents is just like paying for them.
That'd be really nice, even if it's a small touch.
Soccer.
Yeah,
that would have been really nice. Another missed opportunity here was where the fuck is Molly's parents?
I was wondering that too.
Well, I thought that they were going to make the point that she lives alone. Like, she's, like, so mature that she insisted on getting an apartment.
I thought they were going to do something like, oh, mom's an alcoholic, right? Or something like that. And so the only thing that Molly's ever been able to control are her academics, right? And her friendship with Amy. But instead, she just, like, comes home to this weird, like, Florida-esque apartment complex, and you never see her parents.
She's definitely on the like, the southeast side of LA.
Yeah. But, you know, contrast that with Amy, who has Lisa Kudrow and Will Forte's parents, and the fact that they're, like, so overbearing and earnest makes sense for, like, her character, right? Mm-hmm. But we never got that kind of clarification or justification for the way that Molly behaves. I thought I was disappointed that they didn't go there.
Me too.
I wonder if... Again, like when she gets home at the end of the night and like she's in her living room and she closes the door and then it goes black. It's like, oh, I wonder if they're thinking. There's two things that they could be thinking. One is like, oh, they totally know that like she comes from a really bad home life, so we don't need to do anything else. Like that's it, visually done. Or they're thinking like, oh, it's too cliche of a movie. Like we're gonna do the same thing that everyone else does. Is like, oh, this one character has a bad life and this is their motivation to be super successful and go to Yale, and so they just kind of shit on it almost, or they just avoid it entirely, but they don't do the other thing, which is hint at it a little bit more, just enough. I don't know.
Give us something to latch on to, some kind of thing of, you know, character development that goes beyond like, I'm an overachiever, I've never partied in my life.
Amy's such a good character because we are emotionally connected to her, because we are seeing like her attempts and her failures and her insecurities of like crushing on somebody, and it's still high school. Like even though like she comes from like probably a more accepting household, like being out in high school is not something that is easy.
Right.
So like, and the movie definitely makes strides to talk about that, and so like we care more when she does like fail or succeed. But we don't get that with Molly, and it feels weird that like Molly is kind of being pushed as like the main character.
Right, but it feels completely unbalanced.
Right.
Yeah.
We didn't party because we wanted to focus on school and get into good colleges. And it worked. We are not one-dimensional. We are smart and fun.
Woo! Excuse me. Oh.
We have to go to a party tonight.
What?
What took them 4 years, we're doing in 1 night!
So I guess I'd ask you, gentlemen, would you recommend this movie?
I don't think it's worth seeing in the theaters. If it's on a streaming service, yeah, watch it. You know, I'd say there's probably enough there to enjoy it in that context.
I would say, yeah, go check it out. Like, that movie definitely has its flaws, and it's frustrating when I start talking about it in depth, but it's a movie that has a woman as a director, has 2 female leads, and it does talk about things that are interesting, albeit with the caveat of, like, kind of gross caricatures of people, but it's not, to me, it's not like an intellectually stimulating movie, so I wouldn't view it that way, but it is kind of fun.
Who do you think this movie's made for?
I would recommend this movie for a couple of reasons.
I think this movie's were made for. Just kidding.
This movie was not made for us.
Okay.
Absolutely not made for
we
us.
are not the target audience for this movie. So Superbad worked for us because we're men, and we had those friendships
Also,
in high
Weird
school.
that you guys are lumping me into this group that loves Superbad. I have not once talked about Superbad.
I'm just saying that Superbad maybe appealed right to us more. Okay, except for Josh.
I'm just saying I didn't say that.
Did you say you would or would not recommend this movie?
I would.
You would, okay.
And I would recommend it because, one, I think it's important that we support movies like this, because I do think that while this might have been a bit of a misfire, that there is value in it, and having this different perspective and this different approach to what is typically a male-driven and fairly conventional type of movie, right?
Yes.
Like, women have not had their chance to make a gross comedy in this vein. Like, Bridesmaids is a good example of a female-driven comedy that does it right, that does it correctly, that is, like, funny across the board.
Yeah.
Like, you can be a cisgendered white male like myself and find it funny, and you can be a woman, find it funny, etc. This movie doesn't quite pull off that kind of broad appeal.
It's a debut, though.
But it is a debut, which should be commended. But I do think we're not the target audience, and I do think that women will find things to relate to this movie that we're just purely unable to do, right? Because as cisgendered white males.
Well, so I feel also with like coming of age high school stories, they mostly lean hard on this theme of drugs and alcohol and sex.
Yeah,
where it's just like, we're gonna like discover these sides of ourselves by going out and getting wasted and hooking up, which this movie like really it hinted at it a lot, where it's just like, yeah, they trip out in a really unrealistic way for a very short period of time, and then like one of the characters is like playing beer pong and drinking, and like seems like she's getting kind of a little tipsy, and then it's like a really backseat theme here.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of like a reworking of like a high school coming of age plot line.
This movie was almost there. It was almost fucking good. Like, it was like maybe even great. As it stands, it's passable.
The tools are there.
Yeah, it's there. It's there. It just wasn't quite fully realized, and maybe that's due to the fact that we had a first-time director here. Although I thought she did a good job, and I thought she had some really interesting stylistic choices. Yeah. But it does just miss the mark just a little bit. But I do think that it's an important movie. It should be supported financially, because I'd like to see what else Olivia Wilde can do, and for that matter, Beanie Feldstein and
Divert.
Did she write this?
No, this was written by 4 women, most of whom
was it
by 4 queens. That's right.
Well, I would like to look it up. Do you mind if I do it real quick? Because
you're gonna do it whether I say okay or not.
One of the teachers, I think she wrote this.
Miss Foyne.
Yeah, Miss Foyne.
Which she was fine.
She was fine.
She has a movie on Netflix. Fuck.
Oh, that's her movie.
Oh, dude, her showing up too at like just the right moment. And I gotta say, I know this is gonna. I shouldn't even say this because it's gonna sound so bad. What are the odds that Miss Fine is gonna have a dress and Beanie Feldstein size?
You son of a bitch.
Wait, what?
So here,
glad you didn't hear that.
Just Jessica Williams.
While he's looking it up. Miss Fine is a man.
The incredible
and she
Jessica
shows up to this
James.
party and she has sex with a female student.
Right.
Well, no, he's 20.
He is 20. Yeah, they did.
There's
they
no
did
abuse
set
of
that
power
up.
anymore because
Right.
the season or the school year's over.
Is that how that works?
No. I mean, you're absolutely right in bringing that up. I mean, like the fact that he's 20.
I was definitely bothered by that.
That was an excuse, right? That he's 20 because he's had to repeat the 7th grade 3 times or whatever.
Is Olivia Wilde like a raunchy dude, bro?
I don't know,
With
but
the vagina, like she just thinks like, oh, wouldn't it be so funny if like this teacher, like
finger in the
this
butt.
hot teacher fucked his student, even though he's 20, with like he's Mexican, he's got long hair, he's like he had ponytails on, he takes small. Like,
but when it comes down to it, you're still dealing with an abuse of power.
Oh,
Someone
yeah,
who's
I
in a
know.
position of power versus someone who is not in a position of power, and that person taking advantage of that.
like a dude bro would write this.
The scene
Right.
in the end where she goes up to, you think it's the guy, and she leans into the ear and goes,
Jackson laughed.
and then this Asian girl is just like, what? It felt weird.
It was so weird. It's like, that's what you kids are saying these days, right?
Sorry, you all look alike.
Yeah.
All you Mexicans and Asians look alike.
Dark skin, dark hair.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about the comedy on that. I don't know. Maybe we should cancel this movie if it's gonna fucking
Canceled.
glorify young adult.
As
sexual
Addison would
relations.
say, I'm a cis white gender male.
You're a cis white gendered male.
Isn't that how'd you say it?
Cisgendered white male.
Cisgendered white male.
Yes.
Please know your pronouns.
So I have no authority in the cancellation realm, but
You
it
know,
seemed a little off to me.
I think it is worth noting that there are
Might
some
report.
problematic characterizations in this movie. There are some problematic plot points in this movie, the things that we've talked about and covered. And just because it's led by a female writing staff and a female director does not excuse those things. However, I felt as though there was enough value to merit a recommendation.
I don't know. Now that I'm thinking about the whole Jessica Williams plot, I'm a little sour to this movie.
Is that Miss Fine?
Miss Fine, yeah. I'm actually more bothered. We probably should cut the camera off.
Okay.
Like I'm starting to
Fucking
not like
cut it!
I love this movie, but not anymore.
Please like and subscribe.
You're gonna bookend each
Thumbs
episode.
up.
What is this movie trying to sell us?
Oh, right. Gentlemen, what is this movie trying to sell us?
A coming of age story in a different lens.
I would have to say that this is a faux woke movie that is trying to sell us on a certain ideology by virtue of the fact that they are inclusive and the characters that they have. We're supposed to be like, this is art.
Yeah, I agree. Oscar Wilde, you try to get us, try to come back to life. I don't know, man. I'm still getting fucking more and more bothered about, because I didn't realize. I remember that. I just forgot about like that. She totally fucking.
It's glossed over.
And the movie doesn't go to any lengths at all to be like, hey, maybe that's fucked up. Like we have another character saying, "You fucked Miss Fine."
Like if the cops show up and like arrest her.
Yeah,
at
like
graduation.
do that. That would have been hilarious to like.
That would've
Oh,
been
it'd
funny.
be like a dark comedy kind of thing. But instead, they're just like, Jessica Williams has like one little line, and it's kind of like redeeming. I don't know. It's fucking bullshit. Why do we have that?
I think it's another attempt at this movie. Like I said, it's a emergency comedy injection where they're just like, teacher fucks the goofy student. I don't know.
That student's
Maybe?
gonna work at Google.
He's gonna work at Google.
It's no Apple, but
That's no Apple.
this movie is trying to sell the faux woke, and it's bothering me that like, with its inclusivity, it's also
Damaging.
kind of just problematic.
Yeah.
Which happens a lot when white women like when white women create stuff, dude.
Oh no.
Like we talk about girls.
Oh no.
What? It's very exclusive and problematic, even though one side of it or one element of it is like positive. And this is a great example of like completely missing the mark on everything else except for like one inclusive thing, which is being a lesbian.
They did handle that well.
They handled it really well.
That was tastefully handled. And then
they fucked everything else up.
Speaking of tastefully handled, do you guys want to go get some fucking pancakes?
You want to get some fucking pancakes?
Oh yeah, that's
Fuck
the end.
yeah!
Fuck
I
yeah!
completely forgot about that because I was like, how can this be over?
Yo,
Please?
end this movie. End this podcast.
And this podcast. Thanks for watching.
Yo, fuck you and fuck pancakes.
You are
top tier gets all of our premium Snapchat, nude Snapchat.
yes. The good angles, right, where it's like from the bottom, so you have the shaft right up front and the face.
People do love that angle.
That's a great angle. I mean, it's a winner, you know.
The double chin.
Call that the Giants angle.
Giants bane.
Call that the steering wheel.